Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
Hi. Hi.
It's
Hi.
good to see you, Annette.
Yeah, you're back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was away for work last time. And then I think my father-in-law had just died the meeting before.
Before, yes. Wow. Yeah.
Quite a month.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
How does it feel to sort of to return to us with, you've been having all this stuff and then the group has been having all this stuff.
Yeah. Well, and I watched I got through the one from October, but I didn't get through the last meeting. So I'm like, I don't know where you're at. Yeah, so it feels a little bit murky.
Yeah, yeah. Must feel particularly like you go away from home and then there's all these things happening and then you come back in the midst of everything.
Yeah. It's like, where is it at now?
I guess we have to find that out.
Yeah.
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 So do we know that what people can't come?
Mary said she
Mary.
could not come this time.
Uh-huh.
And BJ said she probably wouldn't be able to come, right?
Yeah, we weren't sure whether she could or not.
Yeah. Um, let's see if I mean, Susan said she would come, but she's not here yet.
She'll be here.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Um,
So hopefully we're expecting Roberto and Susan and a couple of other people. Kate.
okay. Yeah.
Be here. But I think we should start, or we have started. I wonder if someone would help us sort of settle and Ed, maybe you could do that, do a little attunement for us as a way of sort of re-entering the group.
Yeah, sure. Happy to. Inviting you to sense in if your body wants to move at all. Settle into your chair if it needs anything. A stretch or a yawn or sigh.
Oh, Masumi, you're on the top of the mountain moving.
Yeah, wish I was there too.
Maybe closing your eyes or lowering your gaze and taking a moment to feel your feet on the floor. And we could imagine that you have roots that come out of your feet and go deep into the earth. And that energy from the earth and nutrients come back up those roots. And slowly fill your body from your feet up your legs into your sit bones and pelvis and everything, belly, coming up the chest and the back. And filling your arms, hands, shoulders, up the neck and into your face until you're completely full with some good grounded energy.
Mm.
Hmm. Coming you back to the group.
Thank you. I had suggested that we talk about, in the midst of everything, in this meeting where we can't all be here because of everybody's people in the States' plans for Thanksgiving, that we talk about what we've learned about group. But let's see if that's where we are. It seems like the idea of really looking at what focusing gives to group is an idea whose time has come, but maybe it came, it's a long time in coming. And the presentation I did for the focusing conference, there was such enthusiasm about, really looking at group dynamics and what group is and how to work with groups. Because so many people are working with groups that aren't traditional therapy groups. And we haven't really looked at what focusing gives to the concept of groups. So I talked to this one of the participants named Cassell, and I'll send you the little dialogue I did with her. And she was saying how much she wanted to know about groups, and that the role that you find yourself in groups, and the feeling of a spell being cast on you, and all of these kind of mysterious experiences that we have in group, that we also have as individuals that we study with our inner group. But she told me about this video that I hadn't seen of Jane's, where he's talking about how he hates groups. And have you seen that, Annette? It's I'll send it to you all. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've watched it a few times.
Oh, you have? I haven't seen that before. I mean, I know he felt that way, but I hadn't seen that. So I think that our leadership group is trying to understand group dynamics from a focusing point of view. And we started out with the idea of community empowerment and our contribution to communities, but then groups is a part of that. So we have a group, an individual, a dyad, a group, and then a community. And it seems like we're really struggling to understand what it is that we can learn and share with the world about groups. So anyway, I would suggest, but I'd like to just suggest as a member, and other people may have other things, other suggestions, but my suggestion would be that we just start by each person speaking really briefly for 2 minutes or something about what you're coming with, what's there for you, but maybe less about the people who aren't here, if we could do that, because I think that it's problematic when we're talking about people that aren't here. And some people may say, oh, but we've done that before, but I don't think it's been a good idea. So that would be my suggestion. and maybe something that we've learned about groups so far, something that we want to learn. But anything that anybody else wants to start with is fine with me. I don't want to what would be the word? I don't want to tell, I don't want to lead the group in that way, that this is what we should do, but that's a suggestion. How does it feel to be here with the 9 of us right now?
I was thinking about that, and thinking it's a little awkward because two key people are not with us, and at least they have been important since I've participated in the group. And it's like you're starting a new group or a new kind of group every time you meet. For this group, I'm never sure where we're going. It's kind of unpredictable. So that's what I would say about this particular group. I mean, several people know I lead groups regularly. I lead 3 groups. They're all support groups, and they have a designated purpose to support people with their life issues, and they're mostly people present personal issues. So they're not intellectual, or we don't talk about ideas at all. We don't talk about the world outside the group. Everything is in the room. And that's a guideline that we have. And we also talk from the I position. As everybody knows, it's hard to keep in the I position because so I'll incorporate the things that I've learned about our group in just a few words. I think it's important to have a clear leadership. That is, we tried last year to have a leaderless group, and I felt it was a chaos. That is, we couldn't agree on what we were doing, and if without a clear purpose and without a clear leader, or a leader who wanted us to try to be a leaderless group, for all of us to step up to leadership. That's a better way of putting it than
Yes.
for you. I think it was a very difficult, and we're developing. So a group is not static at all. Every week, we never know what's going to happen, and we don't know the composition. We don't know what is going to take anybody. We don't know what the reaction to the last week's recordings will be. I still think it's good to have a few clear guidelines so that it will reduce the possibility or the probability of people not being clear on what behaviors are okay and what behaviors are not okay. At least a couple. I'll stop there.
Does it seem like a good idea that all of us speak? And then we have our conversation?
Or do we want, maybe somebody wants to reflect on what Marvin said, or
Sounds like a very good idea. I
I
mean,
like-
maybe
that-
I'll try. Shall I try that?
good Joker, yeah.
So, well, also because some of what you're saying, Marvin, is kind of like, yeah, it kind of resonates, you know, what you're saying about like, you're saying, oh no, I'm supposed to reflect too. Well, you're saying, so hard. You're saying, like, in a way, I think you're saying there's not, there's in a way, no, stability in a way, like every week every time it's different, and that's because well, there's some things you said, like the group may be different size, so it feels like every time it's a different group, and I must say that part resonated with me because I noticed that too, like it's a different configuration, and it's a different size, smaller, bigger, and that's really a big, yeah, a big difference, like every time, like how we interact with one another. And I must also say, for me, like yeah, it's different how I can interact with a group. And so I always notice that, like that difference, and I kind of welcome that. I do welcome that, like, and then you went on, like, people feel different, there's different reactions from the previous session, and the people seeing the video. And then you were also saying, like, how you feel there should be some you know, a few stable points, a few fixed points, maybe in the form of guidelines, or something like in the order of that, so that we have something that kind of comes back every time on a regular basis, something to hold on to. Yeah. So that's what I get from what you're saying.
All sounds good to me.
Yeah.
And I love how you say what you did say. It's I mean, you always are very mindful and considerate, but you have and that's the one thing I love about the group, the wish to be helpful to one another comes through in the reflections. So although it's not specifically a support group, it is supporting.
Mm. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, and there's one thing I forgot to say. What occurred to me is like that you say, look, it's different all the time, and I what came to me was like, that's like how it is outside in the world, you know. It's different every time. You can't, it always changes. You cannot, have any expectations that come true. Because, yeah. And I like that idea about the group, that it's maybe a kind of a microcosmos of what's out there.
So maybe I'll reflect what Yoga said. That for you, Yoga, there's something that you really like about it being different all the time and being a microcosm of out there. But that you do miss something about consistent, being able to count on everybody being there. The size of the group being the same.
Oh, did I miss that? The size being the same?
No, that was what I thought, that you were saying, that you resonated with that.
Oh no,
You.
no, I resonated with Marvin. How Marvin noticed like oh, it's different every time when the size is different. I
Right,
resonated
yes.
with noticing that.
Yes.
But I find it very interesting, and I like it.
Like it.
A different space, like all the time. It's not a fixed thing, because it kind of gives me and the group, I think, a different different possibilities, you know, to have a different kind of interaction together. Yeah.
As I think of it, every group I've been in has been different. Whether I was leading the group and it was expressive therapy or communication skills or stress management, the people in the group, I mean, say I'd be doing groups with a group, be doing meetings with a group of people from the unit I was working on, each week. So many times the people would be the same, but there might be one new person or something like that. But one new person could change the entire feel of the group, the interactions of the group. It made a really big difference. And that was a structured group in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
But it was offering opportunities to be unstructured, whether it was self-expression through art or writing or whatever, or whether it was through speaking and communicating feelings. So I guess I rather like that variation also. But then I was also thinking, okay, then there's family groups. And family groups are different also. Not everybody is always there. So it depends on who's there and what we're doing. And there's less structure there, except, like for tomorrow, I'm a mess because I've been cooking and preparing for a group of 19 tomorrow for dinner. And who knows how it will go. People will talk and interact and communicate, but the only real structure is we're going to be having a big dinner. And then it'll be opportunities to see how everyone's doing and communicate. And be supportive of one another, hopefully. And then I was trying to think, what was the other? I mean, we're in groups all the time. If it's a church group, and I used to go to church all the time, I'm not at all a churchgoer at this point in my life, but that was very structured. And everybody knew what was going to be happening and what to do. So that was a totally different kind of group. Yeah. And then this is yet another. Our Monday morning group has a different, and we have same people and some different people all the time, with one person leading, and well, I don't know, we've got a leader and then we've got somebody presenting. So there's things to learn in each of these types of groups. There's interactions to be had. I guess I enjoy that. Even though it can be stressful right now because you don't know exactly what's going to happen. You kind of have to be prepared for that.
I think the word I was looking for before was constrain, when I suggested that we each say something about what we've learned. And I said, but I don't want to, and I couldn't think of the word. I don't want to constrain us to taking turns, like each person is not. So I think that was your impulse, Yoga, in reflecting. It's like, well, let's not just have this person and this person and this person, but let's, in reflecting, we're having more of an interaction. So I'm withdrawing my suggestion of the taking turns, but maybe a sensitivity to really hearing from everybody. Just where we are. And I think one of the things that I've learned is well, I want to say I love the unpredictability, because there's that sense of courting surprise that we're that I don't like the feeling of knowing what's going to happen, but I like the feeling of having something new to respond to, an improvisation. And I find our group very improvisational. We're trying to really be ourselves and be in touch with that deeper self and come from there. And I guess what I've learned is that it's a very messy business, and to be coming from your genuine place, rather than to be saying what is expected of you to say, or to contribute just what the group needs to be contributed. And we're experimenting with that, with really being ourselves and helping each other be ourselves. And such challenges of not taking sides, of talking from an I place, even if we're talking about the world, of inviting people to say the more of what they're saying, really taking in each other. Marvin, when you said last week and this week that we don't have very many guidelines, and I was just watching the video of last time, and I was saying, well, if we only have a few, let's really make use of them. So the few that we have, I think, are very important, and we have a lot of trouble making use of them. So, but I think that's the struggle. I don't know that more of them would help. So that's I'd be curious about.
I don't think we need more. I think the few that we have maybe could benefit from being more explicit, though. That is for everybody to know what they are, and if they have a reaction to them, negative reaction, that they voice it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do we know? I mean, does everybody know that our guidelines are focusing guidelines of asking for a pause if we need it, of talking from ourselves, of not using judgmental language, but trying to really use the language that communicates in sort of genuine relating? You have to excuse me, my cat is throwing up. He eats the plants and then throws up. That you are being a terrible distraction, little dog. Wait a minute. Of the room, so I'm not. Guidelines of, cats not throwing up in the middle of the group.
Can I just first of all, hi everyone.
I
I was listening from the beginning, but I was still on the train. And I want to sort of like circle back to a couple of things. One, what Marvin shared around the sort of like the unpredictability of the group, the sort of like every week it's a different thing. And that's something that I think I heard and I'm not sure. So for clarification purposes, Marvin, the piece about the video, whether there's an expectation to have watched the video and then come back and have a discussion about it, or there's no expectation about it. And I know that one of the things that I remember was that was one of the things that we suggested, that we would watch the video from the previous week and then come back and see if there was something else that had resonated or come alive for us since then. And so to your point, Marvin, of the rules or the guidelines not being explicit, and to what you're saying, Lynn, just now around, but we are guided by the focusing guideline. And I don't know that we are not, but I also don't know that we are. And I know that it sounds flip-floppy. I don't think that it's that we don't know them. I think all of us here know what the focusing guidelines are, but I don't know that we know explicitly that that's what we're following, because I don't hear a lot of reflection going on here as a whole. I don't see a lot of poses being taken. And so it's almost like it's the background, but it's almost like my computer died out, my other computer, and my son, who's like the god of fixing my stuff, came in, and he was like, "Oh, but that's because you have all these other things in there, and they're doing whatever they're doing." I didn't know they were there, and I didn't know how they got there, but they were there. And so, he removed them. And some of them he made visible to me, like, oh, this is this, and you need it. And so I think that there's a need for another conversation to revisit that. And then I want to take a little bit of what you say, Yoga, when you say that every group, it's almost like a new adventure. It's almost like a surprise. It's almost like something new. And it reminded me of the guest house, roomy guest house. It really it reminded me of that. And it also says to me that this is how life is. Life is not static. Life is not the same all the time. And every time I come into this group, to your ask, right? To your ask, Lynn, of what have I gotten out of this? What has been something that I treasure? What I treasure is it's in some way the unpredictability. It's the not knowing what's going to unfold, right? Because that's life. And then my learning from that is transferring that sort of like not knowing to my interactions with people in the real planet, and finding a place and a space for me to be grounded regardless of what's going on around me. And so that's my takeaway from this group. And I have to tell you, and you guys have heard me say this, there are so many times when I say, I'm not coming back to this shit. It's just too much for me. But I keep coming back because it has so much to offer to me. I come back, and then when I watch the video, there's always something, a nugget that I didn't see, that has something, it's almost like, opening a gift with the expectation that you know what it is. And then when you open it, it wasn't what you thought it was. And you're just like, ah. So that's a bit of disappointment because you expected something else. But there's also the joy because it wasn't what you expected. So that's where I'm at around this. And I don't know if that's helpful to hear me say this around how I sit here myself. But thank you to both you, Marvin and Yoga, for like bringing both of those places. And I'm not wanting to have one or the other. I'm really wanting to sit with both of them in balance. So that's my takeaway today.
Thank you, Isabel. I was thinking that that our guidelines, focusing guidelines, are like the 6 steps. And I look at Annette when I say that, because I think of you, Annette, as a champion of the 6 steps, as a kind of scaffolding. And with the 6 steps, we certainly don't, we suggest something, but if something else comes, the something else comes, right? We don't say, no, go back and feel your, your chest and what the guidelines are there to, like railings, but they aren't rules. That's, to me, the difference. So that people like Kate, who don't want to watch the videos, don't watch the videos because that's not right for her. But it's right for you, Isabel, and it's right for many of us, and not right for other people. And so there's a guideline that's very difficult to put into words, and even more difficult to use or to remember or something. And that's the guideline. And you know what I'm going to say, don't you, Kate? It's the guideline of what Jean calls being on its side, of that life force, that carrying forward energy that doesn't obey rules. It doesn't listen to, it just shuts down and goes through the motions of something, or it does it in the way that it needs to do it, the way a baby develops or something. So that's the messiness of the process. And it's very similar to individual growth and to individual therapy, where you can't do it according to, it doesn't do it according to some prescription. And I sort of remembered that, or realized that, when I had said, well, let's each say something. And then I said, oh, it's not going to listen to that. It's like it has a mind of its own, the it of the individual and the it of the group. I'd really like to know what if anybody has I wouldn't as much like, maybe I'd like a reflection, or what do you think of that? Is that right to you? Kate, would you be willing to reflect that?
Hi. You said something about the guidelines. if we have guidelines, but some of us don't want to obey those guidelines, don't want to do it. Some of us really want to do it. So that means it doesn't work for everyone. We need to be on its side, like the life force inside us. We need to feel how it feels, what it wants.
Right.
Is that right?
Yes, yes. That's the guideline that differentiates a focusing group, I think, from any other group.
Yeah.
Because there's something that's even more important than reflecting, more important than pausing, more important than speaking from the I, more important than not using judgmental language, more important than asking people to say more about what it is. And that's this honoring, and I think we do that in this group, honoring what's coming from the person and trying to use that and steer the person in a direction where they could be heard better, maybe, but not to shut them down, not to say, no, do it this way. Although I was with Marvin, and that was very interesting in the video. I was saying to Marvin, do it this way, but we wouldn't do that all the time. I was noticing that experiment.
Well, I didn't mind it, Lynn. I find it helpful. It was helpful to me to come back to that point of view. But I do think that issues that people are raising today are helpful in clarifying that the group doesn't really have an explicit purpose beyond interacting as well as we can. People do not share, as for example, in the groups I lead, their personal issues, what's going on in their lives. That it is, they got a medical problem, they have a housing problem, they have some joy that's happening. We don't do any of that. We don't all agree to watch the videos. Some agree to do that. We don't, as Isabel points out, we don't take as many reflections as we might, and certainly not multiple reflections of points people raise. We don't take that many pauses. We don't pay that much attention to anybody's body and nonverbal cues. We do what we do, and that's fine, and that's enough. But I think that making that explicit is important, because without a clear purpose, some people may be put off, and I would say their sporadic attendance is because they view that there's nothing going on. There's no purpose. There's no specific purpose that you have in a church group or this kind of a group. There's not a class all the time. You don't set us off on an orientation. We are what we are.
Can I respond to you, Marvin?
Yeah.
I feel frustrated when you say that, because for me, and part of the challenge is that we're all different, and to make that room for all of these differences. But for me, it's very specific, it's very clear, it's very challenging, and it's the commitment and the purpose to grow as a group, and to develop our own leadership, and to develop our our ability to use focusing in interactions with multiple people. And that's so specific for me and so clear that it drives me crazy when everybody says we don't have a purpose.
Well, you see, Lynn, just to be a little adversarial, you see that several people dropped out because they made the same sort of complaint or frustration that there wasn't.
Because this kind of group wasn't what they wanted.
Exactly.
But it's a very specific thing, and they didn't want this specific thing. It's very specific guidelines, and they didn't want those guidelines. They weren't trying to do the thing that I think this group is trying to do. And so it was right for them to drop out. They wanted to do something different. And Jean would say, well, go into the kitchen with the people that want to do what you want to do and do that.
But it takes a while to figure out what we're doing here, because in the first year, it was very much clearer what we were doing.
Well,
the second year, it wasn't clear at all.
I'd like to hear from other people. Just about, I don't want people to agree with me. I'd just like to hear what you think about that when I say that it's very clear, very specific, very purposeful, and that some part of it, this life force part, is hard to put into words. Masumi, why don't you disagree with me just for the sake of of having an encounter?
Well, there are several things that is coming up in my mind.
Yes, thank you.
I like the way you said about the purpose for us in this group is each of us to grow.
And to grow as a group.
And then, yes, but grow as a group is not what I am not really feeling yet.
Yes.
What I am learning is not because I do not thoroughly understand the content of all the people is saying. I watch nonverbal signs and nonverbal messages that I get from each person, the way he or she speaks, moves the hands, or, gives all sorts of nonverbal signs, and pick up what attracts me and what doesn't. And I will learn from that how I will try to speak when I speak. What I miss in this group, frankly, is more personal learning from each person's personal lives. I wish I could know much better as a person of each person, such as in support group that Marvin said, talking about personal issues. I do, of course, remember some of members, open up and then saying about their upbringings and how hard it has been to that person in their childhood. And those personal experiences really teach me a lot.
Yes.
So I'm learning in that way, although I am not thoroughly understand each and every word of you're saying. And yeah, I think I can think of other things, but let me stop here.
Thank you, Masumi. Is there anyone that you would like to hear something about their childhood, their personal life, that, you know, instead of it being prescriptive, if we want to hear from someone, we could ask them. I would love to hear that from you, Masumi, what your childhood was like. More. I mean, you have said something about it, where you grew up and.
You're muted, Mizumi. Oh, I have to change my name.
Well, if some, I cannot relate the my childhood story to what we are discussing now. So I am not ready to
Yes.
really, talk about it yet.
Out of the blue, yes.
If, yeah.
I was touched by what you said about wanting to know people more and remembering the things that people have said about their personal struggle and their childhood. Reminded me of how grounding that is.
Yeah, maybe I wonder, I was just Masumi, I'm thinking like, yeah, I can relate to wanting to know more from other people, and for me, I'm not like directly thinking about childhood stories, but I mean, not that I don't want to hear them, but that's not the first thing I think of. But what came to me was like maybe even just a very brief check-in in the beginning, and we do it a little bit. We try to do that a little bit, like to come in a bit before the meeting and talk a little bit, but maybe a check-in at the beginning, and just I like to know how people are right now, or what's going on now in the moment. So that's why I thought of, checking in the beginning, like this is going on for me now, and like that, and I wonder if that would help.
Yes. That reminded me of the group I organized, and before beginning the theme, we try to take space and time for each of us telling about what's happening around oneself lately. And that also is really helpful in knowing that person better. Oh, is that right? Yeah, I would say. And, there's some trouble he or she might disclose would really, is very touching, and I will learn from that, how that person is feeling about what's happening recently. So I think it is a good idea. I thought it was what you talked about, checking before beginning, checking in. Is that what you meant?
Yes, yeah.
Sometimes one person might talk too long, though, and I have trouble.
Yes.
Even though I say 1 or 2 minutes each, but then some people would say 5 or 6 minutes, and then I have trouble, to control. But we are learning from that long story too, so it's hard to stop.
I think for me, I would love that if we did that before 6, from a quarter to 6. But for me, I want to know what's going on for people here in this universe of us more, and how outside things impact on that. But how you're feeling being right here now with us, what your feeling is about what each other is saying, what I'm saying. I always want to know how people feel about what I'm saying, how it impacts. You know, it's that talking, what I call talking about you and me, that we don't know in our cultures. I'm saying that like we have a lot of different cultures but here, but I think we, in any of them, we don't know how to talk about how we impact on each other and what we're really feeling with each other. And that's so intimate. I want to know what Rachel is feeling right now with the group, with what we're saying.
Well, I wanted to say, hearing you, Lynn, kind of sort of be impassioned a bit and saying, no, we are doing something specific, and this is what we're doing, you know, and it was very helpful and clarifying in terms of knowing what we're doing, and also it was sort of refreshing to have that personal kind of, this is what we're doing, and we're doing this particular thing, and it's, you know, I really appreciated hearing that. And also I want to say, like, hearing it in such a measured way, even though it was sort of emotive and kind of in response to Marvin's sort of you know, reiterating that kind of, what are we doing here, and we're losing people because we're who's the leader, where are we going, and then it was helpful to hear we're learning how to be a focusing group. I mean, even hearing that was anchoring and reminding. And I think I'll just say this, with focusing and with my training with Charlotte in your house, Lynn, in your apartment, we often came back to, what is focusing? What are we doing? What are we learning? What did we just do? What are we talking about? It feels very ethereal in a way. And sometimes, like the Ann Weiser Cornell, or the 6 steps, or the 4 steps, or the whatever, the unit model stuff is so helpful when we're dealing with the like as yet to be fully named or fully charted. So that was something that I really liked. In fact, I surprised myself how much I liked it. Yeah, because I count on you to be sort of, let's see how we, you know, kind of a little bit more not as close with what's happening for you. And I wanted to just, yeah, say it wasn't frightening. It was really refreshing, and I was kind of able to receive it, and I liked it.
Mm. I'm glad you liked it.
Rachel, would you please say clearly what you liked in short sentence?
Yeah, that Lynn seemed to be speaking from a very personal place, that she was affected and moved, and sort of asserting how she was feeling in a way. That's not all of it, but that was what I liked so much.
Thank you. But what is related to analyzers and 6 steps?
Oh, that there is, I find there's an appetite for someone who is as, I was sort of responding to Marvin saying, what are we doing? And my own sense often of what are we doing? Even when I'm focusing with somebody, I sometimes feel I know just what I'm doing. And sometimes I'm like, what the hell are we doing? What am I doing? I might as well cast a spell. I don't, it's so ethereal and not tangible. And so Anne Weiser, Cornell, and the 6 steps or things that are in a list, and this is what you do, and this is what you say, sort of recipes can be very helpful to keep coming back to, not exclusively, but to as a touchstone and a reminder of oh yes, this is, let me reflect, or let me sort of stepping stones or something through what can feel like a swamp of very intricate unnamed feelings or interpersonal and intuitive ways of interacting and being as a focuser. I don't think I did a
So,
good I'm assuming.
Thank you. Thank you. I am still wondering, what sort of things do we need in this group of what you say about the specific steps to come in? Like, in what situation do you refer to when we need that
Could I
kind
in here to
Yeah,
what, or does somebody else want to? I just wanted to clarify that what I heard, what I heard Rachel say is that we aren't doing 6 steps. We're not doing something like this. We're doing something like this. And sometimes it's hard to get a hold of. But she liked my being very passionate about, no, we're doing this. And this has its own order. It's not like this. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Okay, I wasn't following when you said in a long sentences, but now it's clear. Thank you.
Good. What was I faithful to what you said, Rachel?
Yes. Thank you.
Well, my further question is, okay, I got what Lynn said just now. I mean, expressed very strongly, helped you come back to this, sort out what's happening here. But who or how can each of us is ready to do such thing in this group, or is allowed or feeling very free to do that? Like, yes, last time I said I'd been wanting to stop PJ, but I wasn't thinking that I am allowed, sort of. I'm not in a position to sort of say anything like that. You are not following focusing attitude. You know, my voice was coming up from my body, but I just felt so reluctant to speak up. I
Wow.
wonder if anybody else is feeling that way or not. I mean, I admire Lynn for doing that just right now, but is anybody feeling freely about doing such thing? I'm wondering.
I'm curious if Masumi, if in your speaking, are you saying freely to be able to, in the group in general, regardless of who it is, to say to someone, you're not following or you're not embodying the focusing attitude? Is that what you're saying? Like not feeling empowered to do that?
No, I just confessed that I didn't feel I had the right to say something like that, and then I wondered if
But what I'm saying,
each of you in this group, each of you
so,
is feeling very
Masumi,
free.
what I'm saying is, if we take BJ out of the equation, is there a sense of empowerment to say that in the group regardless of who's speaking? That's what I'm asking.
Say it again, please. Am I feeling what my personal? You're asking. Can you ask me again?
I am asking, do you feel empowered to ask someone else or to address someone else other than BJ?
Can
I-
anybody clarify what
Someone
Yeah,
help
what
me.
I'm being asked? I am not understanding you.
Can I translate? What
Sure,
I
please.
what you said was so powerful, Masumi, and Isabel wants to know more. That you said you don't feel the right to say what you really want to say about another
She say
person.
to BJ. To BJ. And I'm saying that she feels that way about all of us.
What
Well, I think it's limited to the situation. If anything happens to other person, I would probably feel the same way. I don't want to talk about. I don't want to really bring up BJ because she's not here. But everybody knows that I had said it last time. I had wanted to say stop. So
yes.
yeah. I
And you
just wondered if anybody was feeling the same way. Please stop BJ
Yes,
at that
I was
time.
feeling it. I'm assuming I was feeling it. And I have thought about and started making a big stop sign that I can just hold up without being critical to anybody.
yes.
I just say stop.
Yes. And BJ was so thankful. She said, that's what I want. She needed that the way you need somebody to say to stop. But I was so touched that you want that feeling of you have the right, you have the permission to be the leader. And that's, I think, what this group for me is about, is us having the right to say what comes. That's, we don't have the right to hurt people, but we have the right to say what's there.
Can we try to stay with this, Masumi? I felt also, I love you that you use the word free to say stop, or free to protest or do something to say whatever. I also felt with that example, but any example where there's a conflict, I happen to feel when there's a conflict, or when I feel someone is not just a conflict, but when it seems quite direct between the people, I sort of lose my agency or my words, and I don't feel free. I feel afraid and like I'd be running in front of a truck. I could do it, but I'd have to be willing to to replace the person who's being attacked. I'd have to take the attention off and be willing to sacrifice myself in a certain way. That's the only, or that's my immediate sense. So I feel almost paralyzed. The opposite of being free. And even having the language that Marvin and you have of saying stop, I wouldn't be able to even find that word. I lose sort of language. I go to such a sort of small place.
Thank you for telling me so. Yes. And I just wondered if it was you, Marvin and myself, or the other people how were they feeling at that moment? I just wondered.
So what
When-
I'm wondering, Masumi, Rachel, and Marvin, is can this be transferable to other situations outside of this group? Because that's the learning here for me. Can I say stop in other places? Can I feel empowered? Can I feel free in other places? So that was my question. That regardless of who is embodying it, do I feel free enough to say, stop, let's pause, let's sit back, let's allow this to marinate? And that was my question. It's because I think that's one of the things that we're learning in this group, or not learning, cultivating in this group, to be able to bring those skills outside of these little boxes. So it's that helpful? Does it clarify what I'm asking?
For me,
Yes. Go ahead, Marvin.
no, you. I talk too much.
Well, I would probably have to find a better word than stop and suddenly coming up. And like Marvin's idea of holding up a sign, pause time. Just sit here. Maybe a better way to convey.
Can I say something? Yeah, I wonder. So yeah, I wonder, Masumi, if you're also, if part of what you're saying is about like that you wanted to say something and felt like you have to do it in a focusing way. Is that something? Is that part of what you're saying? Because that would be for me.
Look
I'm
for
sorry. Are you
look
asking
for-
me?
I'm asking, I'm assuming.
Oh, okay. I think that it got a little cloudy at the beginning.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I am feeling a little bit awkward sensing somebody wanting to stop me or stop us conversing about this subject. We are talking about this too long, I think, taking up your time. So should we continue or?
No.
Objecting to you, Amanda?
I want to add to it.
I want more.
This is a great conversation, and I'm gonna say, Joke, I'm gonna use your example because I used it this morning. So last time in the last meeting, Yoka way of taking a post was turning off her video. And I was concerned about that because I don't know what was going on, right? And every time something was going on, she would say, I need a post, and she'll go off camera. And to me, that was both very courageous, and also for me, I was like, what's happening to Yoka when I can't see her, right? So there was both of those, I was holding both of those places, and that's the it that I think, Lynn, you're talking about. Like I just allow that part of concern to come forward, right? And I didn't want to be with it, but it was coming. I couldn't stop it, right? And I know that for you, maybe Joka, it was the only, we didn't have a stop sign. And we didn't have a whatever. And for you, you had that. And I am so glad you were using it, regardless of how it was making me feel. Because it really said to me, wow, you were so courageous, just taking your pause. If no one else was going to take it, you were taking it. And what happened for me out of that, and I want to share this, and this is the part about transferring what I get here, is that I was in a meeting and I just couldn't leave the space. I couldn't leave the space because it was a meeting in person.
Mhm.
The situation got really, and what I used was like, oh, I could take a pause here, a real pause, like Joka was taking, and not going off camera, but I can just take a breath so I can stay. And I ended up staying the entire time for the entire meeting, and it was quite contentious. And that came out of what you offer. So just want to kind of like share that.
Mm. It's beautiful. I was thinking, I think there's two kinds
I'm
of
sorry,
pauses.
Masumi was talking, but she was
Yeah.
muted.
Oh,
Masumi was talking,
Oh,
but she was muted.
I am talking too much, so please, Annette.
okay. I'll say my thing and then you can say yours. I wanted to say what I'm hearing is that there's two kinds of pauses. There's the pause that we need, that I need a pause, and there's the pause that we feel we want for somebody else. And I was just thinking, and I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but I'll just share it because it's an idea. There's that television show. Is it like America's Got Talent or something like that? Anyways, when they tell you to stop, there's one X and then two X's and then three X's. And it's like, if there's three, okay, it's done. And I was just thinking, if we need a pause, we could just say like timeout, like I need a timeout. You could just do that and then turn your camera off or like withdraw, however you withdraw. And we could like literally go stop. Like, and if one person has the courage to do it, talking too fast, we could invite others to add to it. And this makes me think of something that's called like the first follower. The most courageous person in some ways isn't the first person, it's the second person. Because the first person can be the crazy person. Oh yeah, they're out there, they have this idea. But the second person to say, yes, that's right, I think we need to stop, is creating the belonging, right? Is saying this group needs something. Anyways, I don't know if people like that idea, but we use hand gestures sometimes in focusing, right? We might go like this to say, oh, I'm just inside, like, or we might say like give me a reflection or I need a prompt, but that's part, I don't know who came up with those, but they're out there.
I like that.
Yeah.
So Ed, I wanted to say something to you because you're so knowledgeable. I think of you as an expert, an encyclopedia of focusing. But I really would love to hear what you personally think about things, because Isabel was saying something personal, Masum something personal, Rachel, I was saying something personal, and then you came in with ideas. And they were great ideas, but they were distracting for me.
Yeah. Well, I guess I would have to say that for the most part, I'm able to stay in curiosity in this group. I haven't been triggered yet. Maybe that's it. So I mostly am able to stay in curiosity. And so I feel what I'm learning, and I've said this before in the group, is still very implicit, is about how to be in a group and to interact more. And I don't know if I can say that much more clearly than I could before. But I have been doing some focusing lately on when I can't stay in curiosity. It's like it's not like I'm never it happens, but it seems to happen more in more intimate interactions. But in this group, I always feel pretty safe. But maybe that's because I hide more. Maybe I don't share enough, and therefore I don't trigger people. But then maybe the ideas do. I don't know.
Well, thanks for saying that.
How do you feel about what Marvin said? And
Well, I know it's true, and I also know my purpose, like my reason for coming to this group is a lot to just be with you, Lynn, and see how you do things and learn from you. So maybe I don't fully engage in the group in the sense that there's a part of me that watches and is kind of commentating and like just noticing is too active to fully feel. It's like I'm skewed. I'm too much in my left brain and using the unit model to understand rather than just feeling. And I guess I would say I need more pauses to feel. I need a longer pause to really stop and feel and sense what's it doing in me.
Can I just say I so appreciate, Annette, that you had named another sort of like implicit piece here, that a lot of us are in this group for Lynn. And that's not often say or acknowledged. And so for me, the duality of that is that I am in this group for the learning from sitting at the lap of the master, right? And the second thing for me, and this was my initial intention, was to bring more communities of color to this setting. And that has not been manifested. And yet I stay. You know, but thank you for naming that, because I think that that's another thing that goes unnamed here, that many of us are here as a Lynn's fan club, right? And that's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. There's so many great masters that have disciples, beginning with Jesus, right? The Buddha, all master, Muhammad had disciples. And just like Lynn learned directly from another master, right? Jean. So we want that, the transmission. But that's not spoken about here. That's another implicit kind of like agreement that is not made explicit. And so I really appreciate you naming that. And I don't know if I heard this correctly, but I also heard that as a result of that, the part of your soul that you're bringing here is the student part. I think what Marvin asked, we want to see your human side also. Have I got that right, Marvin?
You got it perfect.
So,
Perfectly.
and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, that's okay, and I love that. But it's another piece that I think that we haven't explicitly named here. Just to name a few. And Nancy, I would love to hear how you are around this conversation. And I know Susan hasn't said much either. So if it's okay and you feel like coming in, I would love to hear what your thoughts are.
You said me, right?
Yes.
I'm backtracking a little bit, but when Rachel was speaking of the focusing community and the focusing way of being, it sounded said to me or showed me why this is so difficult. Because focusing isn't step by step and learn, but although when we learned it, like you were describing, Rachel, there were steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that's how we learned it. And it can be helpful to go back to those sometimes for some stability. But when we're in the focusing arena, we're really kind of, I was going to say all over the place. I don't know that all over the place is quite right, though. But we're not moving in a straight line.
Yes.
From point A to point B. So that may be why it feels so, discombobulated isn't the right word either, but so not concrete. Focusing is not concrete. It brings us into this space where we're really delving into, personally, when we're doing it one-on-one, to what's going on in a deeper place inside of us. So if we're trying to focus into a deeper place in our group,
Right.
and I'm not quite sure what that's about and how we're doing that, but I wonder if that's why it's not so concrete. So I'm not.
Actually, I have a question, and it's a question for everybody, but how do we distinguish focusing from being a human that is interacting in a human way that we would like other people to interact with us about in that way?
Like,
What-
I think what Nancy was trying to express, Marvin, really speaks to that to touch into this deeper level where we are connected and where the group is doing something, and that each of us is a group, and each of us has this this non-linear, going all these different ways, but developing something. It's a developmental, and that's not the way we humans interact consciously, but maybe we're trying to find that life energy that happens in very mysterious ways beneath the surface. What was that what you were saying, Nancy?
Yeah, and it can feel safer to us when we've got an A, B, C, D, or a list of steps, because we all know. But it's much harder to go into the depth of who we are, whether it's personally or the depths of who we are as a group. I don't think we know that yet. I don't know what. Yeah, I think it's totally evolving. So I'm not sure what I'm speaking of, but it feels like what you were speaking of, Rachel.
Yes,
May I interrupt?
please. You've been waiting to speak.
I'm thinking, I feel very shaky. In terms of group, I feel you all are on one wavelength. You're working to, like working with clay, and I feel I'm out. I haven't come in yet.
Oh, but
And
Susan, I
what?
hear you as always going inside and sharing your depth and your feelings and your emotions.
Nancy, I'm talking about this right now because I came at 7 o'clock, not 6 o'clock. I missed the first hour. And I think Rachel was talking. And when I came in, I sort of wanted to say, could somebody say to me, what happened before? How did we get to where Rachel was? So, I mean, it's what I was trying to say, Nancy, was I felt something is happening and I missed the beginning, and I feel sort of at sea. I mean, I hear the words. I hear it's not the intellectual content. I can feel very not part of things. And that's how I was starting to feel. I used to feel that so much in every group and in this group. And recently, I don't feel that in this group in the same way or so much. That's all. And I mean, I thought if I at least make my voice so you know that this person, this little corner is kind of struggling to get up to speed. C'est tout.
Bene.
Or perhaps, I'm not sure if this is relevant. I think I have a different feeling about the stop and stuff. I too would have a hard time saying this is really making me uncomfortable. Or I don't think we should go on with this, or something that means stop. And I would, because I'd question myself, and I sort of hate to do something to somebody else. It's like I understand more than they do. I'm acting that way, and I'm not sure, but I think it's also, I don't want people to be mad at me, or other people, wouldn't like it, and all that. However, I don't think I have another feeling that isn't the stop so much as I feel a kind of awe, and that the person is at a kind of edge, that where they're showing something that they could feel ashamed about, but I identify, I think, and I feel we've been let into a very private place, and that I don't want them to feel ashamed. I think that's different from what I've heard from most of you. Maybe maybe the two can go together. I mean, there's a way of holding the stuff that has come that's so difficult and to hear and scary to be with. I did feel scared. I could feel my body, really tense. But I also feel like the people who are having the conflict, they're doing something for me too. I have felt both sides. And so in a way, it helps me to see that I'm not a monster and they're not a monster. This is human. And I appreciate that. So does anybody know? I mean, I guess, I would love to hear how a response, if you can find one. I know one can't always respond.
I would like to try, unless somebody else wants to. The part that I felt needed like interference or stopping was my experience, that we're referring to.
Mm,
It felt like I was watching somebody. This is going to be too much or too extreme, but in my system, it felt like watching someone being beaten or being bullied,
mhm.
and being hurt. That felt very that felt like it needed interference, like that by being a bystander, I was being part of an abuse.
Yeah.
Now, also, what was going on for the other person in that week or two afterwards, I really felt, I think a lot of what you felt, Susan, like here we're seeing into this very tender place also of both people. And a lot of care is needed. And I also can identify deeply with both,
Mhm.
with both things. It was sort of um the somebody sort of having something, being pounded or having something taken out on them. That felt like, whoa, can we,
Mm.
like, let's slow down or do something. That didn't feel
Mm.
safe or okay or fair.
I hear you. I can find that part of myself also. So,
I want to say that I'm really sorry, Susan, that you weren't able to come at the beginning of the group because we said at that time that we would not talk about the issue, the conflict with BJ and Jim. And your comments are kind of a distraction for me in the direction that we were moving. And I thought we were moving in a direction to be clear, to be much clearer about what we're doing here. Got us back to looking at a particular conflict. And
I-
maybe that's fine too, but
I,
I'm sharing what I'm feeling.
yes, I was, I think that they're in this movement of the group. I think that those go together. It didn't feel like we left the subject of what does it mean to be in a group whose purpose is to grow in ability to take leadership. So when Masumi said she didn't feel, you didn't feel like the right or your place or to have the authority to say, stop, let's wait here for a minute. And Susan, then you brought up, so we're talking not about this conflict, but we're talking
I understand that.
what, yes, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just clarifying for Marvin. We're talking about the issue of being triggered, and maybe we need to really look at that much more closely, because that's very, when you go to the edge of intimacy, we are afraid of it because it triggers all kinds of primal stuff for all of us, and Annette is saying, well, I'm going to be a student and not get too close to that fire, right? But what you contributed, Susan, was so important for me. I learned something, that it isn't only about the group, members of the group having the authority, the right to say, stop, but also this other part, that's something very tender and important and with great gravitas, that means seriousness,
Yeah.
and is happening, and that we have to hold it with a kind of sacredness, not just stop,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? And that feeling of somebody showing the parts of themselves that are these young parts need to be held with great tenderness and care. And the stop can be there too.
Yeah.
But there are many different kinds of stops. And I was very glad you brought that in, Susan, because
That's how I meant it, Marvin, not to, get back, not to talk about the people. No, I didn't mean to
So it starts to trigger
miss
things.
doing that. It made you feel that. I was
Yeah.
thinking too, how in a way there is no side. Like this person's side, that person's side, in a way that there are many sides. We each have a side. We each have something we're bringing. So there are like 22 sides or whatever we are. I think sometimes, at least I feel afraid in a conflict that I have to choose. The feelings are so powerful, and that, for instance, when Yoga had a conflict with Rosa, now Yoga and I are really good friends, and I felt very bad that I couldn't support Yoga at that moment. So what I'm just talking, how the thought that there are no sides is so comforting to me and kind of liberating. I mean, we each have our own view, but it's not so binary. But I shut up now.
I think that's really beautiful, Susan. And I think
You,
we often jump to conclusions, right? If you intervene for the one who needs protecting, you're seen to be not taking the side maybe of the other person who's going to maybe feel shame because we intervened, and it's not fair. And it's almost like we have to explicitly say both or mirror both.
yeah,
But often we wait till we're so fired up on one side that we're intervening on their behalf rather than on the interaction, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how we do it. But I do know that one way to pause people is to say, can I get that? Or can I,
yeah.
can I mirror what's been said so far or something in a conflict? Maybe, I don't know if there's a way to do that.
or
And you say, and you
just
say,
say, I really want to, I
Wanna
get
get
what,
that.
yeah, what you're feeling right now. There's so
Mm.
much passion in it, and it's not just BJ and Jim having so much passion, but each of us when we get triggered. And I would love us to talk more about the experience of being triggered, and we don't want to just prevent that. We want to understand
Mhm.
how the group holds that, because I think the usual way is you make rules so that if the person gets triggered and they have to suppress that. But we want to be on everybody's side. We want to be on the person who's triggered. When Yoka, when you were pouring out last time and you were saying, I can't stand it. I can't stand it. Right? That was a triggered. But we're gonna find it. Yoko wants to find a better word for that.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Better
I
word.
really don't like
word.
like the word triggered.
Yeah,
I
we have
don't
to
like it either.
better
I
word.
yeah, so I
Realize.
really would like us to find another word because it feels like when you say, Lynn, when Yoko was triggered, you know, it just feels like something not so important. You know,
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
it's
Well,
kind of
yes, let's find a better word, but I was trying to say the opposite, that Susan's sense of something important is happening.
Yeah.
We have to be on the person's side who is feeling something very deep and primal that has to do with one's whole life force, and that we have to find the way of passionately being able to feel into it.
Yes. Yes. Otherwise, I think the person feels so alone with it, with this, you know, showing your bottom or something. And then the shame. Then shame comes. Or for me.
Marvin did a wonderful job of telling us when he was affected by, and I'm avoiding that word, the conversation that reminded him of when he lost a good friend at the age of was it 10, I think, or 12. But he helped us to understand what he was feeling because of that experience. If we could each figure out ways to do that with one another and just hold one another, it would be amazing progress for the group.
We're trying to do that, Nancy.
Yes. Yes.
I was reflecting back when I said I couldn't feel I had a right to say stop, but in me, I was feeling that I want to show love to the person to whom I wanted to say stop. But I just wanted to mention what the behavior you are taking is something that bothers me. I want to show the love to that person. At the same time, I want to say something about the behavior. And that gives me my memory of child rearing, not only conflicts, but when my child did something wrong, I wanted to teach or tell the person what you're doing now is not accepted, but I love you. And it's so hard for me in the right spot to show both. And here I find that we have built respect to one another. Here we all are feeling safe, I think, with the respect of respectful feeling for each person. That also helps showing love, even though condemning sort of the behavior. So I think what we have done in this group for 2 or 3 years is that personal respect for each person has been so important to me. And we feel so connected in a deep level. So it's probably acceptable compared with other daily life situation, than saying your behavior is wrong and showing love. It's difficult in daily situation, but in this group, I feel, I personally feel that I should be courageous enough, not feeling I don't have right or I am not a leader, but to speak up what I deeply feel. And even if condemning or stopping, I can show I still love such person. Am I conveying what I'm trying to say?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
It's
Yes.
wonderful to hear you speaking up for.
yes.
I'm for your speaking up, because that comes deep from you. And I have some trouble, maybe this is semantic, with you using, Masumi, the word, what were some of the words for the condemning behavior, wrong? To me, that sounds so judgmental.
Susan, in my development and childhood, I guess I got more of the critical modeling from my parents and my teachers. I didn't receive the loving, caring vocabulary as much. And I'm trying to develop that. And I hope in this group we will develop that more. That is, that ability to share our concern and care for one another, rather than that easier. It seems easier to come forward, that critical side, that judgmental side. Maybe that's our society, American society. We're not a touchy-feely society. We don't rush up and give one another a hug as they do in some other cultures. Maybe,
Now you
Lynn, I
tell
see you
me.
smiling. Maybe your experience is different.
I did not get the memo.
I just wanted to say, for me, stop has different feelings. That stop, this is wrong, this is bad behavior, is one kind of stop. But I didn't really take what you were saying, Masumi, and I don't think that BJ did, as stop, that's wrong, but more stop, let's be with that, let's find that, let's touch that, let's understand that, stop so we can be with that. It's a different kind of stop.
Yeah. I have a term for it that I came to from focusing, and it was like focusing on keeping boundaries with a nephew, like having firm boundaries. And the term I ended up with was a compassionate, fired up sandwich. So the bun is compassionate. The bun doesn't have any fire, but the meat or whatever the sandwich is, like there's some fired up in there. There's some like energy about injustice or this is the way or whatever it is. And I don't know that I'm any very good at doing it, but that metaphor helps because it's
a sandwich too.
Yeah, maybe that would be better, Yoka, than the word trigger. Just fired up is better.
Oh,
Fired up.
Idea.
That has some energy.
Wonderful.
yeah.
Right.
Lynn, there is something that you said that I just don't want to, I want to just sort of mark and ask that we come back to. And I have to, because it's so frightening. A decade will go by before I ever bring myself back to it. And it's that the talking about the me and the you. And Nancy, you were saying sort of so beautifully, like the me and you of the group, or what is the deeper of the group, or the implicit, and that we're finding that. But and sort of how can we talk about that, and how do we talk about that, and noticing how terrifying that is when it's that it seems like that's a door best remain shut unless it's flung open, you know, in some kind of Eugene O'Neill play, and it's all out there and you have to talk about it because somebody's an alcoholic and somebody's going to get murdered. Then you can say everything. But otherwise, that's a door best kept shut. It's only storage in there. Never you mind. So, Basumi, you must not understand a word I'm saying. I realize I speak in sort of analogy or metaphor. It's like
Yeah, not at all. I couldn't understand at all what you were talking
yes,
about.
don't worry. Don't worry. I'll do a gesture that will make it all clear soon. But anyway, it's frightening, and I'd like to learn the way even to talk about it and how it could be safe
That's what we're doing.
going over the edge.
You
Oh,
know,
that's a relief.
blasting the door open. I love that.
Yes, the
think I
analogy.
like that.
I think
I
you
know-
should write it to Miss Sumi in an email.
Okay.
There you go, Rachel.
Yeah.
For those of you who celebrate Thanksgiving, have a wonderful day tomorrow. And those of you who don't, have a wonderful day tomorrow. And we'll send you that little video of Jean's and maybe talk about it, and certainly more about the you and me. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Care. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Lynn. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody.